It's 6 p.m. and 6 seconds. It's time to do this panel.
Let's do it.
Hi. Welcome to Playing Tabletop Games Online with Roll20. This is kind of our general seminar. So this, I guess if you want to flip to housekeeping. We've only got 50 minutes to do this. There was one year where we thought we only had 50 minutes and we had 90, and it was very sad because we made the panel shorter than we needed to. But this year we actually only have 50 minutes. We triple checked. The things we will do with this panel, we'll talk a little bit about what Roll20 is for folks who are new. Who here has not used Roll20 and is here with the, okay, there's always a few. Welcome. Great to have you, and it's cool that this is the 8th time we have had this panel. And so it is really cool to see that there are still so many folks out there who are curious enough to give us part of their Gen Con time and come through and ask questions and learn about the platform. Then for folks who are more veterans of the platform, we will talk about current work and plans and kind of what's going on. And then super importantly, and the thing we'll want to leave as much time for as possible, lots of Q&A and an opportunity to talk with us about what's going on. Who we have up here? Me, I'm Nolan. I'm the managing partner of Roll20.
I am Jeff Lamb, developer team lead.
I'm Stephanie Bryan. I'm the Scrum Master.
I'm Dean. I'm Director of Operations.
I'm Trivia, and I'm Director of Licensing.
So you've got the answers to everything up here amongst us. So if you got questions, yeah. So what is Roll20? It is an easy-to-use virtual tabletop. What we tried to do from the inception of it was to mimic the real world and take advantage, while also taking advantage of unique digital opportunities. What I say by mimicking the real world, instead of trying to be a Dungeons and Dragons, at that point, 4th edition simulator, we went, how do we pass cards to each other and make it easier to do that sort of thing? In terms of taking advantage of unique digital opportunities, it was like we could probably make some dice rolling things easier or do things like dynamic lighting, which if you've ever tried to do, actual dark light at your table, it's a weird, you're sitting there with Post-it notes or whatever, and we went, there are easier things that we could do digitally. So we try to leverage in both those directions. Past that, we have a highly inclusive and rapidly growing community. We are at about 4.5 million users over the past 7.5 years of doing this. So more and more people, and we do that with very little advertising. It's y'all going out there and inviting your friends to come play with us. So yeah. Any additions to that in terms of what Roll20 is from others? Did I describe it? I know the platform. Yes.
I always like to inspire interruption questions. So if you have questions, feel free to get your shoulder warmed up and ask.
Can we talk about the marketplace?
Yeah. So sure.
Yeah. So Roll20 also has a independent marketplace. So for independent creators, third-party publishers, etc., can also come and sell their wares on the site.
So all of Roll20 is web browser based, and so one of the things in terms of making it easy to use was that we really didn't want to have to get into, you got to download this, convince your friends to download this. Past that, it is free to use, and while there are definitely things like the marketplace where you can make purchases, the free program has a lot of power to it and a lot of utility to it, and that has always been a goal of ours, is that we wanted it to be something that could really be used for connection. And two, it really be used in a way free-wise, like the fact that you can bring in your own assets to game and use the table in that way instead of having to purchase everything through us. So that's
buy-in is low.
The buy-in is low.
Get right on and get playing.
Yep. So in terms of things that are going on right now, we've been in a heavy hiring phase. If you had been around with us about 3 years ago, there were about 7 people on staff. We are currently up to 30, and that's hiring across kind of all spectrums of what we do. So it's folks into licensing, it's folks into the customer service realm, it's folks into particularly programming, and right now we're doing more programming hiring. Also this year, we've done a whole lot with Paizo. We started to do support with them in the past year with Starfinder, and are really happy in terms of that we're day and date and pushing things out the door with Pathfinder 2, so are very involved in the launch. You may have grabbed on the way in, and if you didn't, grab on the way out. There's some gorgeous printed maps that will also give you download code to a digital map for the Paizo launch. We've started to make a different. So for years, Adam Coble, who did the panel ahead of us with Stephanie and Carlos, we've done all sorts of content streaming online. We are now trying to expand our streaming programs to bring. There's so many more people doing it than when we started this years back, and so we're trying to make the process of like identifying folks in the community and spotlighting their work easier. Past that. Jeff did a whole heck of a lot of work on, we've got now, previously we've done audio uploads through third-party services, like when SoundCloud used to have different usage rights, and now they've changed basically their entire business model, and we've jumped through
We
a few
moved
different.
to Fanburst.
Yeah.
We've done a lot of different options that ended up being relying on a third party to get audio in your game. So we made the hoop, we made the jump through the hoop, so that you could upload your own music to Roll20.
Well, and one of the things that oddly, like this is one of those, like you'd start feeling old as you've done this long enough. It's like now legally it's easier to do audio on the internet than it was 8 years ago. Like there's just a lot less litigation going on,
Yeah,
which
and-
is one of like
and
weird.
Now we joke that Roll20 is becoming a record label, which is things a lot of us were trying to get away from.
Right.
But now we
No, no,
can't.
no.
So
Yep.
thanks laws.
And then past that, this year we've done a lot in terms of graphics overhaul, some of which, for those of you who are used to the site, there are still a lot of things that we are trying to work through with Advanced Fog of War and what some of the rendering is there. But this year is the first year that we've been able to provide motion graphics, so GIFs, but more WebM4, right? Is the technical what they get encoded in? Right?
WebMs, they get encoded as VP8.
There you go. But moving graphics being the
Animation.
animations.
Yeah, like most video formats can get uploaded and they get converted. So
Which is something that is cool in an interface like ours, where we're sharing that amongst multiple people real time, and so it is something that is great. That's the what's new. Beyond that, we have done a whole lot of things. So going from 7 to 30 employees. There's a lot of lag time in terms of getting folks up to speed and getting them comfortable in what they're in. Like, it's funny. I talk about this a lot with people, that there's politeness chicken that happens. Like, two people see something that they want to work on, and they're like, is that in your realm or is that in my realm? And they just look at each other and no one's trying to be rude. And it's like getting people to just say, it's okay, jump in there. With that, we've done a whole bunch of things in the past year that are behind the scenes. One of them would be a bug hunt that I will let Stephanie talk about.
Thanks. So, and this was one of those initiatives that I just jumped on. Basically, we had slightly more than we had more than 300 just bugs logged in our ticketing system, and when we log a new bug, we don't always go back and check to see if it already existed. So we had a lot of duplicates. We also had a lot of bugs that had been fixed because we fixed something else and didn't know that we were fixing this other bug. So there's a lot of redundancy or obsolete things in our ticketing system. And the problem with that is then we don't know what to work on. And we are spending developer time finding out that, no, that was already fixed. And we don't want to spend developer time doing that. So what we did was in April, I took everything that was a bug created before the end of last year. And there were 280.
238 is what that says.
So thank you, 238 of them. I know I put the numbers on the slide. I can't see the slide because Jeff and
There's
Nolan are in
heads.
the way. Thank you. Jeff, can you lean back a little bit? All right. So we had just under 30 employees at the time. So I gave everybody 10 tickets, thereabouts. We had a couple of brand new employees. It was like their first week. I only gave them 5. Each of them came back to me and said, please give us more. Okay. And all they had to do was go and recreate the bug. If they couldn't recreate the bug, they closed it saying, I can't recreate this bug. It's been bug hunted. And this was the results. We back up, guys. I still can't see it. Thank you. We verified 129 of those bugs, which was 54% of them. We found over 103. We have found 103 of them were unverifiable. 43% of those bugs got closed. Those are bugs we don't have to spend any more time on. If they come back, if somebody says, "Hey, I can recreate that bug after all," great. We make a new ticket, and now it's a new thing, and it's back on our radar.
As a process, I think it was something that was really interesting to observe. Like, one, it gave everybody at the company more confidence in terms of reporting bugs themselves, and two, it points out so many things that have like gotten fixed, but the word tag wasn't in the right area or whatever. And so you'd go, there were folks on staff who would like go to an area and it was like, oh, this person literally just went and did an overhaul of all these things within this area in the past 3 months, and somehow, even though they fixed all these things, these bugs didn't get caught along the way. And that's the sort of like growing pains of paperwork that get into things. And so like an initiative like this is something where it gives everybody kind of a fresh start and an ability to tackle things faster into the future. And so the only thing that's not fun about stuff like this is it's not sexy, hot new features to go into. Like, but it's the sort of thing that makes us a faster machine into the future and able to do more.
The other thing that was really exciting about this was that those 129 tickets that were left, as part of doing the bug hunt, I required that everyone put them into the new format where they include the steps to reproduce. They include if they could figure out the root cause. They've included all of the bug template that we're using now that is more standardized. And if anybody here has worked in programming or QA, you know what a big difference it makes to have, here is what I expect to have happen, and here's what I do, and here's what actually happens, versus dynamic lighting broke, please fix.
Yeah, one sentence and a link to a broken post.
Yeah, like this is, so again, this is the kind of thing that is just streamlining all of our process. So the question is, what version of Agile are we using, and are we looking for C# programmers? And the answer to that question is that we are using Scrum, which means that we are in a process of becoming more and more agile, because every agile company is always in a process of becoming more and more agile. Some of our teams use Kanban. If it fits better for what they do, they use Kanban. But I'm the Scrum Master, so I have a certain love for Scrum, and so that's what we use in the programming side. Are we looking for C# programmers? We are currently looking for a couple of different programmers and a few different positions. So the answer to that question is, if you feel like you are qualified and interested and want to get your resume in front of us, it goes to jobs@roll20.net. Please include a cover letter that tells us who you are on the site so that we can, see how much experience you have just with our Roll20 platform.
But
you
also,
don't have to have any.
right?
That's fine.
Yeah.
We definitely hire people who have no Roll20 experience whatsoever. But if you have that experience, it's kind of a nice to have. We like to see it. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
And they're great growing pains to have, because it means that there's been enough success to have them. Like there's so many things that could have gone wrong before now that there wouldn't be anybody. And to be at this place and to be like at this place as a bootstrapped company, is that has been in the black since day 2 of Kickstarter, is just like, yeah.
Yeah, it just points to the growth and maturing as a company. When I came on board, I think there were 5 other people maybe, and I was like, so how do you track things? And everyone's like, I don't know, just in Slack, right?
Were we even in Slack at that point yet?
I think it
Hangouts. Were you on
Oh,
Hangouts?
yeah, it was just a chat. Like, okay, wait, you're tracking this. Okay,
Yeah.
cool,
Yeah.
cool. Much more efficient now, and a lot more manpower to get things done.
So that is this, in contrast to every other panel that we've done today. That was it. We really and truly are here to answer questions and to talk. Just know that with about 10 minutes to the hour, that's the end of party time. So don't be like, whether or not you're one of the people who this is my first Roll20 anything and you've got questions about that, ask that stuff. If you are a super veteran, yes.
Will we ever have an isometric view on the tabletop? Who wants to take that trivia?
That's me. So as far as integrated into the tabletop, as far as I'm aware, that is not something that's on any current development calendar.
I've got a
you have a-
semicolon later.
Okay.
Yeah, yes.
However, we do have a lot of marketplace creators that make some really innovative and incredible isometric packs. So like they've set up, so it works with our grid, but they scale everything. So it works in an isometric view, which I think is very interesting. Galefire RPG, Village Elder.
There's a bunch.
Yeah, so if you look up isometric, see if any of that helps for sure.
I think one of the things that into the future, while I like, it's hard to see that as a directed possibility. The caveat that I like to give a lot is that I think what we do as a business model is it would be utterly wiped out by augmented reality. That as a virtual tabletop, if we can virtually just look at the same tabletop from the comfort of our living room, then we're gone. And so in that case, we keep an eye towards that and keep a mindset towards we may have to build into a different realm because of just that.
At least 20% of the people here have a VR headset.
Yeah. Right. And I think the biggest thing that keeps us from jumping full-throated into it, one, we as a group, and I don't think I'm misspeaking for anybody here on this panel, but like our belief is that augmented reality is going to be more useful than virtual reality for playing tabletop games. Like it's just going to work better. And to that end, augmented reality hardware is nowhere close yet. And like once it gets there, we will be into it. But until it's there, it's a waste. Particularly, what did we say we are? We're an easy-to-use virtual tabletop. We're based in a web browser. We're doing everything we can to get you into it very fast. Now go buy a $1,000 piece of equipment that's battery doesn't work. No. So
Can I ask a clarifying question? For isometric view, for you, is it you want the squished diagonal grid? Do you know what I mean? Okay. So then you're
Yep.
So it's like maybe a 2.5D situation? Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, there have been at some points talks of us having an isometric thing
Yep.
there, and it always got kind of held up in the sense of like someone's like, "I figured out the math," and it's like, "No, we didn't figure out the math." So yeah, but it's not on a current development roadmap, but that does not mean it will not be on a development roadmap.
Next.
Other questions?
Yeah.
So the question is,
You're
have-
so good at this.
have you looked into usability for new players and ways to make the platform easier for new players? Can I pass that one to Jeff?
Yeah, so one of the things we really are trying to focus on is improving the experience for first time jumping onto the platform. I mean, I know Carlos has made videos about certain features, and we have ideas beyond that and plans beyond that. Not beyond soon, right? To make the experience and the workflow better on the virtual tabletop.
So many of the conversations happening within the company right now, and so much of our impending roadmap is based upon ideas of usability and how you are getting from the website into the interface, even in terms of making that a more intuitive. Like I've created a game, and where did that game go, and how do I get my friends to it, and beyond. This is I think that is home right now in terms of a lot of what is coming, or even things like architecturally that we're working on right now that will make the website faster.
Yeah.
and make elements load easier.
I, mean,
Yeah, we have-
I don't know why we can't just say, yeah, that's on our plan right now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like-
like
no,
we,
that's-
we're
Next-
doing
next
that.
9
Yeah.
months.
Like
And
that-
accessibility is a huge thing for us too.
I think you
so-
could easily say that the usability for new users is probably the most important thing on that roadmap
Yep.
right now.
Yep.
Because we do prioritize things, and that as of fairly recently became the top priority. So yes, it's coming.
Emphatically.
Soon. Actual.
So so the question would be, what are the things that can help you very quickly get into the interface and start to be a more capable user of it? And I think to that end, a lot of what is best in that. So I would say our tutorial does not work as well as we want it to because it is not kept up with new features in the way we want it to. I think the best resources are our wiki. And even that is something that we are overhauling right now and moving into more of a service desk setup. So it becomes a different sort of knowledge base, but will carry the same knowledge. And then past that, video content, loads and loads of video content out there that we are both producing and spotlighting as other people make it. That really goes into how to use quickest tips and tricks and things like that. I would say if I was to give, and actually let's make an exercise of this. Everybody up here, what would be your one resource that you would give as far as the best thing to do? I would say there's a wiki page on the Roll20 wiki that is just advanced shortcuts, and that changes your life, I think.
I would say that in addition to the wiki, I would say Carlos's short videos that he's doing are fantastic and great for new users. Definitely.
I would say watching Adam Coble set up a game, which he has a huge set on his YouTube. He's our GM in residence, and he has many, many videos going through either setting up a specific scenario or this is how to do X on Roll20.
You stole mine. Yeah, and over the next few months, there will be some UX clarifications and cleanup on that too. Because I mean, like once you figure out the basics, it's pretty easy from there. Then there's a lot of weird advanced stuff that's hard that you'll never know until someone shows it to you. But yeah, the Adam videos I think are a good spot. There's also just other people who have just good setup videos that you can watch for 5 minutes and be like, oh, cool, I learned how to set up most things.
But within that too, to jump on that point, like I think it is a bummer and something that we have an onus to fix. And like you can drag something onto the tabletop and just drop it from a folder on your computer.
That should be obvious.
And it's not as obvious that like the amount of time that people spend going, wait, we made it so easy, it's too easy. We got to fix that.
And if I were to say the resource I would consider, and it might not be appropriate for you, but I found like finding a GM and joining a game who is knowledgeable about Roll20 is great because they'll know how to do stuff and you can just ask them.
Yeah.
Forums are great.
Our community is
So
yeah.
Just in
that
general, the
that was an
community.
audience contribution of check the forums.
well, and an audience contribution that is indicative of our audience.
Yep.
They will help and they will
It
pitch
absolutely will help. Yep. So we had a question from
in. Where is our audio and video going in terms of consistency into the future, and what's that look like, particularly with large amounts of users? Yep. One thing that I think is worth saying as we talk about this is that Roll20 is a box of tools, and you don't have to use all of them, and that is something that we are okay with. As far as that particular tool goes, though, it is incredibly useful. We have done some things this year in terms of upgrading the library for what we do with WebRTC, which is the voice and video item. We have done a lot there actually for capacity this year in terms of how it functions and how quickly. So there are multiple forms of server here. And
So
Jeff,
to
if
be
you wanna-
specific, we had a single what's called turn server that handled connections when you couldn't get direct ones. We've scaled that up to quadruple that amount and end a little with some CPU power. So we have a lot of resources in the form of having those video connections stable through our platform. WebRTC as a fundamentally does interesting things at scale because you do connect to everyone individually. So that can occasionally be your bandwidth or your ISP, or not even that. It could be peering between you and one other player, and the connection drops.
But within that, we're very fortunate that that's a technology that other people are also trying to solve those problems with.
Yes.
And so by every once in a while just going and updating the libraries, we get some juice out of that.
And that's exactly right. WebRTC is a rapidly evolving technology. Like, the top tech companies are doing it, right? It was largely developed, at least in part, by Google, and continues to be done so.
But if you haven't used it in the past like 8 or 9 months, as far as like the full chat feature with many people, you might want to try it again because we had some major updates to it. As far as like having, I don't know the exact details, but I know there was like a backup where if a peer connection failed, it wouldn't dump the entire thing, and reducing the quality by a slight bit so we could have more connection stably. So there were some pretty significant upgrades in the past. What was it 7 months ago? I can't remember. It was in the past year.
It was less than 6 months, I think.
Less than 6 months?
Yeah.
Okay. So you might want to just give it a shot because there were some like major
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. The question is, would we ever consider open sourcing the Roll20 platform? No. I mean, it honestly, as one of the co-creators of the platform, we've always had some pride in terms of it's ours. I think at the same time, we've also had some pride in terms of like, here's an API that you can do a lot with, and making it so that there are ways to interface with it and do different things with it. But one of the things that was our opinion early on is that when you do that, it does get harder to use, and it's not that for some people it gets a lot easier to use, but for others it doesn't. And so that's kind of been our bent in this, is that we want to be involved in what the stewardship looks like going forward, and making certain that the accessibility standards are something that we're setting. So that's where it sits for now. But
as a platform, we're not going open source. Nope.
Yeah.
But it's not that we hate open source by
No.
any means. All of the community contributed, and all of our official sheets are open source. They're MIT licensed.
There's a lot of Roll20 code that is open and you can interface with and can do things with uniquely, but not all of it. And that's I think that's the foreseeable future. Other questions? Yeah. So the question is, what does compatibility with touchscreens look like going forward? We have actually hired somebody specifically into bettering our mobile product, and they've got a lot of opinions in terms of what we have not done there.
I think bettering might be an understatement.
Yeah.
Redoing.
It is likely, and this is one of those things, this is dumb for me to say here, it's very likely at the beginning of the year that we'll be completely relaunching all of our mobile apps. So, and within that, there are also changes that are happening with with the tabletop and some inputs there. So, yeah.
I would like to say also that our usability engineer is also aware of and creating style guides with an eye to mobile and touch screens and different ways that you interact with our platform. So,
yeah, we are actively moving to more reactive layouts.
I think it's also fair to say we haven't done it in the last 6 months. So if it's like, oh, I haven't really seen any improvement in since last time, yes, that's true.
Yep.
But it's not something we're ignoring.
Yeah, beginning of 2020, you're likely to see some pretty big improvements there.
Yeah, and the great thing about having all the new manpower now is that all of these things can be worked on at once. Whereas when we were, a small 5-person outfit, it's like, okay, well, let's get some of this thing working, but you're not having the resources to pull in a usability expert or make things look great and have the whole feedback loop going around a table of people who know what the hell they're doing on all of it. And so that's a really exciting. It's a really exciting new era to be in.
Yep. So the statement is that the fog of war stuff is really confusing to use. My statement, yes. We agree. To that end,
We get confused sometimes with how many permutations there are of the settings. So
and
you're not
So
alone.
one of
We figured out during testing that the permutations of dynamic lighting, fog of war, and advanced fog of war, and the various settings was like a factor of over 1 million, I think. And that
That
was
seems
just,
absurd,
can you
but-
have this thing turned on, that
Yeah,
thing turned
yes.
off? this
Combinations,
thing-
yeah.
one of
Not
one of the
permutations.
It's
but
a lot of
yes.
permutations to work with, for sure.
One of the things that's the growing pain in this, and we are doing a lot and have specifically hired more math to this area in terms of cleaning up behind the scenes and unifying those 3 systems. Because right now it's 3 separate systems for us. It's dynamic lighting, fog of war, and advanced fog of war. One, there's probably going to be some rebranding of some of that coming soon to make it all make some more sense. 2, because of the amount of systems there are, and because of the way that they interact with each other, our users, who are very intelligent people who have lots of time and find amazing new ways to do things, have come up with a lot of solutions to hack those systems together in ways that we did not figure out ahead of time. And so one of the things that is a big challenge and onus on us is to try to preserve as much of the functionality as they have figured out how to use among those systems, while also unifying that into a system that makes some sort of sense. And so there's a lot of continual scoping on that as a project.
Yeah. Like, yes, definitely. We are working very hard to unify and sort of take a different approach to how dynamic lighting and the advanced fog of war system works. And that is both from the code side and from the usability side. But to answer your question, to answer your statement, now obviously that's not currently released anything in that realm. So I would, I guess, really point to the same suggestions we gave earlier. As the forums are great. Taking a good look at some streams that are using dynamic lighting, and the community is a great resource.
Other questions? Still got about 15 minutes, so we can still. That was a good face scratch. If this was an auction, Keith, you'd be accidentally the owner of a brand new.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the question is, when he's writing macros for his games, sometimes he can make a macro and sometimes he can't. And he's a free player and wants to know how do you know that this is subscriber locked versus not subscriber locked? That's a really good question.
In terms of macros specifically, macros you should be able to do anything that a character sheet can do in the chat. But there are macros that are used by the API, for example, and the API is a subscriber feature. It's a pro feature, and so some of those macros, I mean, they're going to be community contributed. They're going to be maybe on the forums and come with a accompanying API script or mention one, and those will be the ones that you probably won't get a whole lot of mileage out of.
Yeah.
Yeah, and these are things
Right.
I also have. I have a lot of strong feelings on a lot of things because why not? Emotions rule the world. But so like the way that we've had the tiers split in the past, like, it made sense for what the platform was at the time. Of, okay, this is for a lot of just kind of hardcore role playing nerds who just going to go in and spend some time and mess around and make it work. With the explosive growth that we've had over time, that realm changes, and that's where we've been updating now. And we have some pretty major branding and some structural updates coming to the way that the tiers work and the way you understand and are formed of those.
Okay.
That's a really good point. The comment was that when you've got the how-tos and the videos, it's not always clear there either. I will say, because I also do DM workshops on my personal Twitch stream, and that is one of the things that I explicitly do is on my Twitch stream, I run it using a free account so that I am only showing things that a free account could have.
The line of discussion is no, that's not a question. I refuse. My brain just freezes up. Hey, I'm getting modules. There should be a discount in terms of what I've already
on the
bought.
book, yeah.
A lot of that comes in. This is you've got the
Hey.
mic there. Let's
Hey.
let you do it.
So part of this is when you buy your physical book, you have given your money to Wizards of the Coast. How will Wizards of the Coast know when you bought the Roll20 version if they have gotten their money? And so the way that Paizo deals with this by having an API, if you've bought the Pathfinder PDF on their store, we now have an API call where it's like, yeah, they bought the PDF. You can give it to them at a discount. Until Wizards does something like that, we have no way of confirming that sale, if that makes sense.
I think the other half of that's the yin, the yang to it is that what we do in terms of
I can speak to that
yeah,
too.
no,
And also,
yeah.
the other half of that is Wizards wrote a book, and then the team that I manage the manager of took 500 hours to put it into the Roll20 interface, right? So it's also saving you, if you went to the lengths that we did, that 500 hours of setup, right? Like you didn't have to draw the dynamic lighting or anything like that. So it's more than in statted every monster. One day Ashton maybe will be on this table and talk about statting every monster.
But those are just like they're separate products in a way that I think need some recognition somewhere. And I think one of the things that we will hopefully see over time is a better ability for those of us who are doing all of the licensing behind the scenes to make that work. I think we at Roll20 are particularly cognitive. I'll say this: when I started off in this industry, the statement was, "There's no money in digital. There's not even really money in role-playing games." Now we've got 30 full-time members on staff. There is absolutely money in this, but to that, there were lots of time. Like the inclination is, well, if it's online, give it away for free. Well, that's not necessarily true, because the people who do it online did work and they need to be paid. And even past that, funny thing, consumers, if you got the digital copy for free, and I've got the numbers to back this up, you are less likely to play it than if you paid $5. It sits at the bottom of your free Steam queue, and you don't schedule the time to play it, and so you don't
talk about my backlog.
but it's,
I feel personally attacked.
right? But it's things like that it's like, there is something to be said for the fact that taking a stand to go, okay, there should be some money here, and that's going to enable somebody else to make it in the future, and you're more likely to play it. That makes it something that we've got to do responsibly into the future and make work.
And I want to go one further on that. And so like the part of the problem here that is difficult is the communication between what a consumer wants and expects and what a creator needs to make a living. So when you think of, okay, I bought the book, and now that publisher, because we don't dictate a lot of these pricings. We have licenses, and we have to hold up our end of the contract to sell as a licensor or a licensee. But the question then is, okay, you bought a book. Is the expectation then for the publisher who maybe in many cases made that module on Roll20 and spent, I don't know, how many thousands of dollars to make it happen? Should they lose money on that because it's a separate product? Some publishers, can choose to lose money on that or lose their cut. Not every publisher can afford to do that. So it's in some ways it's stuff that we want to do, but we're also trying very hard to make sure we don't set precedent that expects publishers to lose money hoping to make a profit, when oftentimes that scenario means the same thing through the whole art world of, I'm going to keep losing money because at some point someone's saying I'm going to make money. But we don't want that. We want to make sure they make money. So if it means things are a little more expensive, that's, from my perspective, fine if it's creating a sustainable, healthy, creative environment. But down the road, as these things get easier and the tools for VTTs, as they grow, it becomes an easier import and easier process that costs less. I think that's where you start to see that become a sustainable model of you bought one and now you have some way to have major discounts on the alternate versions of it.
So both Trivia and Dean have both just slipped in there the Paizo API without really letting you guys know this, but as of
Wednesday morning, when you buy something on Paizo, you can connect your Roll20 account and get a discount on it on Roll20 and vice versa.
Yeah, and yeah, if you buy it on Roll20, you actually get the PDF on Paizo.
Yes.
And there's posters in the back.
And there's posters in the back which have a code to give you that poster map on Roll20.
And tell you more. Yeah.
Yeah. But I didn't want that little feature to go unremarked because we slipped it in there a couple times, but it's actually a brand new feature and something that moves towards that kind of ecosystem that you're talking about. And I think it's very interesting and very powerful for sure. So yeah.
This is slightly related perhaps, but we've started having more relationships with publishers that use Kickstarter as well. And we now have a crowdfunding process. So if there's a publisher that we already have a relationship with, they've shown that they can release things reliably on Roll20, then we can also set up being a part of their Kickstarter from the get-go. And maybe then when you get the digital version of, your Kobold Press book of what have you, that it can come with a Roll20 key because we've worked that out in advance. So
we'll say everything in this realm too is getting better. I really do think that. I will say the first licensing deal that was put in front of me included instructions on what to do with the plates for the printing press when we were done. And that's not a joke. Like that's actually the first licensing deal that was put in front of us as Roll20. So we're getting further in terms of digital rights and what we can do.
Yeah, and publishers now that they're taking this seriously are figuring it out faster. They used to not. They used to have no understanding of what VTT is, and now they kind of have to.
Yep. So the question is the site system agnostic? And past that, if you have a rule set that you want to upload, how would you approach that? Yes, it is system agnostic in terms of that. Again, we really try to prioritize, like I said, trading cards across the table or just general dice rolling than being an engine for any one system. At the same time, adding rules to our system is not the easiest thing. It's easy to play us as a virtual tabletop that doesn't automate anything, as a whiteboard with dice rolling and those sorts of things. But taking a system and really plugging it in and making it work, you're going to want to build a character sheet. You're going to want to do some things there that take some real effort.
I was going to ask a clarifying question of, sorry, do you mean character sheet wise, or do you mean actually like I can look up the rules and drag and drop a sword on my character sheet level?
Okay, so both of those.
Both. Okay,
Yeah.
So character sheets, we actually had a panel earlier today that we recorded. So that will be available soon, TM, on the internet to learn more about character sheet creation. As far as rules integration, that's all done through our compendium, which right now is a pretty intensive process, which Dean and I are both pretty passionate about getting those tools a little easier to use. We just need to figure out how it looks long term when we get many people who would like to add some more rules onto the
One of the things we've done this past year, and the fruit of this labor should bear before the end of this year. We announced last year at Gen Con that we were working on our own game, and so we commissioned some designers we really like to make a game for us. That process was done to hurt and to point out to us some of the things in terms of like just how much effort it takes to get the rule set up there and stuck into Roll20 properly. And so we have corrected some of that hurt, not all of that hurt. And every time we add a new system and really add full support for it, it gets easier for all the systems. And we're getting to a point now where I don't know. I'm really excited about where the compendium is headed, and where the people who have done a lot of the compendium work, where their brain is going excitement-wise.
Yeah, and just to clarify too, like getting text of rules
Indeed.
into a system is easy, but if you want to do like the VTT integrations of like, yeah, okay, I have, this
when
class.
when this happens,
Yeah.
Yeah.
this other thing
This
happens.
class modifies 7 different things, but if this other thing has this, it modifies it this way plus this. Like you get into almost video game logic at that point, and there's methods for it, but it's a problem I think we can solve for the most part. I don't know if we'll ever be like 100% solved because game rules can be anything, and programming for all possibilities is difficult. But we've had like the fact that we have 8 compendiums on the site
Yep.
now, where we had 3 2 years ago.
And
But
there's a path there to maximize options.
Well, and in that realm too, it's worth saying, so there's 8 compendiums where all the rules exist. There's also 700 character sheets for things that, so there's a large gap to bridge there between, like, those 700 character sheets exist, and that means that those games are supported in some way on Roll20. At the same time, we would love to bridge that gap with more compendiums.
While we were building out the Charactermancer, like one thing that we all realized is, God, a lot of these rules were meant to just be erased and written back in with a pencil and not handled by 30,000 lines of code. So it's been a learning process for us
So-
too on how to make it easy.
I see folks who I'm assuming are our next panel sneaking in, and so it's that
We've
time.
got to roll.
We will hang out in the hallway if you've got more questions for us or just want to shake hands. There are buttons and again those lovely posters in the back. Please feel free to pick one up. Thanks for
Thank you all
dropping
for
by.
coming.
Thank you, everyone.